Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are doing the Camille camera bag by Swoon Patterns with a removable adjustable strap. I chose to leave off the handle because I just wanted a nice sleek look for this bag, and I have riveted these on. So I do things differently to the pattern, but I still think it come out really nicely. I'm still yet to just do the final iron on that, but yeah, if you'd like to see how to make a camera bag, stay tuned. Alright, so I thought I'd tell you about the hardware we need for this. So you need two 2-inch clips, which I use swivel clips. You're going to need two 1-inch quick release buckles, one strap adjuster, and two D-rings. Now I'm using metal D-rings even though the rest is plastic because I don't have plastic black D-rings. Alright, so I'm just going to chuck all of that aside. I'm pretty sure I do this pattern differently to what the pattern says, but that's probably nothing new to you guys because that's what I always do. So I'm starting with these are the strap connectors. So I am just going to put my sticky tape down the center, like I always do. There it comes. And just fold each side into the center. Now this brown that I'm using is like a faux leather look. It's actually really cool. It came from Spotlight. For those that are in Australia, they sell it in two colors. So they've got, this is the dark one, and then they've got like a lighter rich color, which I also love and have bought many meters of. There we go. I think I bought it when it was like a 40% off sale to make it worth it. And my fabric today came from a pre-order through Missy Rose. But I think she put it in the latest one. Or maybe she's got it on her retail or something. I don't know. I have seen it pop up again since I got it. Alright, so I'm just folding that. That's actually a little off-center down this end, but it's not going to matter. So I'm going to use my 3 3/4 stitch length, and I'm just going to sew 1/8 of an inch from the center. That sounds weird. My bobbin's playing up. It is. I think I overwound it. So I don't know if you've ever heard me say it in one of my other videos, but I never fully wind my bobbins. I do like 3/4 to 7/8, but never totally full, because they play up like this. Although I didn't think I did this as a full one, so I'm not sure what its issue is. Sometimes if you go too fast on takeoff, this machine doesn't love me. So I'm just guiding the left part of my foot down the center. Now you can do this if you flip it over, but you have to make sure that your pieces are 100% centered or it won't work. And I like the way it looks from the top better, so I do it this way. And it also holds it together now. So now I'm going to grab my buckle, and I want this side to be the bottom and this side to be the top, so it comes down into it like this. So with this piece here, I'm going to, thread it up and in like so, and then I just want to make sure that it's even. Like that. So that is now my bottom strap. And I put it in inside out. So let's do that again. It's not my morning, I tell ya. Although my 3D printer is going lovely this morning, which is nice. We're onto silver skull rolls. And those of you that are waiting for them, I've decided I will do 3 of each color and then release them. Otherwise we'll be waiting forever. Okay, and so then I'm going to grab the other one and I'm going to do the same. So just pop these aside. up and in and then down. And then just make them even. Like so. So they sit funny, but they're meant to, so don't stress about that. Now I have put weird accents where I wanted the vinyl. You could quite, just as easy, make these out of fabric and they probably won't sit as rigid as they are. It's just because I'm using the vinyl, but I think it's gonna look good, so I'm not changing it. If you want to as well, you could stitch a box across there and hold all the pieces together. Or you could stitch it to the front of the bag. I'm thinking I will... No, I might stitch it together. I've only ever made this bag once, so I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. I'm going to go to there. I'm not going to get too close to the plastic because it'll get in my way when I try and turn like this. But you could also stitch these to the front panel so that they don't move around. I want them to be able to move around though, because if you overload your camera bag with other things, you still want to be able to close it. So these will give like an extra little bit, I guess. Alright, and I did back stitch. Not a lot, just a couple. Chop off my tails. Alright, so there's those bits done. Then, you know what? Where's my lid? So this is your lid piece. You've got a few lid pieces actually. So you've got this one, and then you've got the two sides. Now for the sides of this, I have put vinyl accents. And as you can see, I forgot to trim down my vinyl before, not my vinyl, my foam. Clearly having a bit of a lazy moment there, or forgetful, take your pick. Alright, so we're going to start with these bad boys. So the curvy bit is the front of your lid. And so then the straight bit with the curved edgy bits here are the back. So what you want to do is you want to take the front piece. So this is the front and this is the back. And you want to put them together, obviously. So I'm going to clip there. And then, so I'm going to put a couple of clips because we all know that more than one clip will hold it better. So I'm going to put 3. And then I'm going to bend the lid over to the back here. And then clip it there. With multiple clips. Because I do not want it to move. So there's 3 and 3. And so now I'm just going to stick my hand in and kind of push this out like that. And now I can just clip around so that everything sits evenly. You can do it where you go from the front to the back, but if you have never like eased the corner in, this is definitely the easier way. I have eased the corner in and I still do it this way. Just adjust that bit there. That clip was letting go. So the lining will be a lot easier because you're not trying to fight the foam. But that is what it should look like. As you can tell, I use a lot of clips on this because it has a tendency to want to move. So now I'm going to have the gusset side up. And I'm going to try and keep holding it as the 3D object that it is. And then just stitch around the lid piece. So make sure we back stitch to lock your stitches in. Nothing worse than getting it done and then it kind of falls apart on you. And then back stitch at the end. And voila! So when you turn that out, that is now the side of your lid. So now we're going to do the other side. We're going to do the same thing. So we grab it, we pin it to the front. 1, 2, 3. Then we bend this over and pin it to the back. Oh, sorry, so I should say, we're not actually going all the way to the back. We're going to the little notch that's in the pattern. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. Stick my hand in and push all of that out. Then bend it as a 3D object and then clip it around. And clip. So there we go. Now we can stitch that down. So this lid is the hardest part of the whole bag. So if you can nail this, you're good to go. Everything else just feels like a messenger bag, really. You also notice that I'm not sewing too fast. There's a couple of reasons for that, but the main one is because it's got so many clips in it. I don't want to break my needle by hitting one. And then back stitch. Excellent. So now I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to grab the lining piece and do the same thing. 1, 2, 3. So front piece to front piece here. I got 2 pieces here. What's going on? I don't know. So the interfacing I've used on here as well is a woven iron-on. It's just black. So I had a little piece of black left over. And I figured because I'm doing grey anyway, it'll work out nicely. And I've been waiting on a darker lining to use it on, so we're all good. I used to use a lot of non-woven, but I've decided I just don't like it as much. It is cheaper, but it's a lot harder to get all the wrinkles out, so I'm spending a lot more time ironing than sewing, which is never ideal. Alright, stick it under, stitch forward, stitch back. Stitching slowly, pulling the clips off as I go. Now let's do the other side. Clip the other end. I need a drink. It's quite early in the morning again, and I had chocolate for breakfast, which I know is naughty, but whatever. Okay, so now we can sew this one. A handle on this lid either. One thing I'm not doing. If you were going to put a handle, I probably should have suggested this. Do it first because it's a flat piece of fabric and it's much easier. So now I'm going to turn this one right sides out and slot it into the other one. And I might trim off some of this excess because I don't want it there. So just grab your scissors and trim off the foam just in the seam allowance. I'm not being overly fussy about it, I'm just trimming it down. There's less bulk will make it sit smoother. It should be nice. Okay. So, right sides together. And then I'm going to start with my corners. I always pin the corners first because they need to line up. I'm also opening out the seams to flatten them a little bit more because I don't want all the foam to one side. It will make bulk that we don't need or want for that matter. Alright, while I'm here, I'm going to pin the short side. So if you've done your seam allowances the same on both, this will fit fine. If you didn't, just go back and sew one in further. So whichever one is too big, go in and sew it down a little bit so that they match up. It's like an easy fix. Oops. That's a new clip. Very, very stiff. Alright, so this bit's the back. So we're not actually going to stitch here, so we don't need to do that bit. So we're going to switch around to the front piece and add the clips in here. Now I want my clips facing the lining because I'm going to put it lining side up into the sewing machine. Oh, another new clip. So this is what we should have. Now to sew this, what it actually suggests is at the start. So we're not going to start at this bit. We're actually going to start here and just kind of veer onto here so that we're sewing the lid shut, basically. So you're probably not going to be able to see this, but I'm starting on like an angle and I'm starting about an inch back from the join seam for the side pieces. And we're just going to ease on and then we're going to back stitch because we always back stitch. Grab all those clips and put them out of my way because there was a lot. Alright, and I've just got to, and you can't see. So I've just got to here. I'm going to put my needle down, lift my foot and tuck that seam allowance back under so that it's going to stitch the way I want it to. Alright, and then just veer off onto the back piece. So promise, this is the hardest bit. After we've done this bit, you're going to be fine. Alright, turn your piece in the right way. We want to push all of the edges out. Alright, looks cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch. So I'm going to tuck all of this back into the lid and I'm going to clip it because it won't want to stay there. It's like doing a final stitch on a bag, but we're just doing it to the lid by itself. You'll also notice my pink skull is back. I have moved on from the Lord of the Rings bowl this week, apparently. I missed my skull, so it is back. Although, my other bowl's just like here, so it's not too far away. They're like my portable ones. Not that this bowl's not portable, but this one lives at the machine. So if I'm doing other things and prepping stuff over on my bench, I can take the Lord of the Rings bowl. And then if I forget to bring it back, I don't have to stand up again, which is kind of nice. Because when cutting, I'm never just cutting one bag at a time. I go through my order board and cut all of the same shape at the time while I've got out all the stuff I needed for that shape. So I pull out my pattern pieces. I'm currently in the middle, well, not in the middle. I have cut out this morning before this video for Nora's by Swoon, the Cool Doctor bag. So I cut all of the foam and then just stack it up. And then I cut all of the vinyl, stack that up. And then once I cut it all, I went and interfaced it all. And I haven't bagged it, it's actually behind you. But the other ones I have put into my working tub. So this is what I'll be doing today. Alright, so that's nice and clipped. I'm actually going to do this from the top. So basically that means I've got to squish this down a little bit, but it'll be worth it. I'm going to put my stitch length up to 3 3/4. And I'm just going to stitch a 1/4 inch from the edge. I would do an 1/8, but I don't want to slip off as this is going to be a difficult shape to do. So I'm doing the full 1/4 instead. So we're just making sure we're pressing down. Now I've actually got, at that seam, I didn't take enough out. So I'm just gonna get my pliers, and while it's under the machine, I'm just gonna squish it. So if you've never tuned into my videos before, these are flat pliers. They're called Leather Tool or Leathercraft pliers. I got mine on eBay. I can probably put a link in the description box if I can go and find it. But they're really good for squishing down thick seams. Especially if you're on a domestic machine, it'll help it go under better. I should probably squish the other one because it's probably going to need it. I do usually do this not in the machine, but I was too busy talking, so these things happen. Done. Make sure that you backstitch, pull that out. That is the hardest part of the bag done. I'm actually going to put a crease in the foam at this top curve here because that's going to help that sit like a lid. Alright, so you put that aside, we won't need that till later. Next on top of my pile is the camera lens pockets. So I have foamed 2 of the 4 pieces. And then I'm going to put right sides together. Go back to a 2.5 stitch length. And I'm just stitching a 1/4 inch. I actually think the pattern might say 1/2 inch, but I'm doing 1/4. Just means they'll be a little bit taller. I promise they still fit. Alright, so I'm chain stitching. So I'm chopping off the first one, and then I'm going to come along and stitch the bottom as well. Do I want to stitch the bottom? Yes. Grab the other one. Come, stitch the bottom. Now, if you need to pin this, please don't feel like you don't have to just because I didn't. If you need to pin it, pin it. Alright, tails off. And then turn them in the right way. Now, these will want to fight you a little bit because of the foam. One. and 2. So now I'm just going to top stitch just the top edge. You don't really see the bottom edge, so therefore I'm not going to. And I'm just going to do 3 3/4 inch, 3 3/4 stitch length, which I actually think is in mils. And then I'm doing a 1/8 of an inch from the top edge. So I'm going to do that to both of them. And again, you might want to clip this because we are fighting the foam a little bit. Okay. So now, somewhere in my pile, I have my side pieces. So you should have 2 sides and a bottom. The bottom is obviously the perfectly square one, and the sides taper up a little bit at the top. So you want to grab your foam piece and you want to go 1 inch up from the bottom. And then we're just going to baste them to the side like that. So I'm just basting it very, very close to the edge. We're going to do the same to the other side as well. So I'm just using the ruler that is on my bench top. And then we're going to baste the other side. So you're going to have to bend this up and over, because the idea is that we're making a little pocket for the lens to sit in. So we want to go 1 inch up, grab it. You can clip it if you want to. So this side's going to fight you because you're fighting the pressure of the bag foam. So I'm actually going to put 3 pins in it, or clips, wonder clips, like so. So it's going to sit up and fight you a little bit, but nothing you can't handle. Alright. Then I'm going to grab the other one and do the same thing. So, 1 inch up from the bottom, bend it over, and then clip it. Like so, and then baste that down as well. So if you've never heard the word basting, basting is just like temporary holding stitching. Awesome. So now we can take our base and join it on. There. And then the other side. So again, your foam might be in the way a little bit, but nothing to the point where I'm still pinning this. Because you did 1 inch up and you're only doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance, it's not in your way, which is nice. Okay, so that's now half the inside of your bag. So these are my 2 side walls, but before I attach them, I want to make a slip pocket. So I'm putting my slip pocket on the inside. You could actually make 2 and put one on the outside as well if you wanted to. But this is so you can put all your cords and stuff without it touching your camera. So that's why I put it on the inside. So then I'm going to open this up, finger press it open and then fold it in half, and I'm going to top stitch this. So you pick which side you want to face out. I think I want this side. And I'm just stitching 1/8 of an inch from the top again. Just to give it like a nice clean top. Trim off my tails. Have another drink. Alright, so I'm going to take one of my side walls. Place this on. So you line it up along the bottom and the sides, and then I'm going to base that down in place as well. Because it's just going to be easier than trying to do it later. By basting this on, we can then treat this as a single piece and we don't have to worry about everything lining up. So I like basting. You do waste thread, obviously, because, you know, you got to sew around. But now that's a single piece. So I'm not worried about layers not falling in or anything like that, because they're all just on. So I like my pocket on the back wall. And I also don't want to have the join here. So we leave part of the bottom open to close the bag. Because there's no zippered pocket to which I would usually hide that seam. So I'm just clipping the center, and I really shouldn't clip with these. I keep attacking this finger, that was not smart. Then I'm going to fold this one in half. I need to get my clipping scissors, it's a much better life plan. I was opening something the other day with a multi-tool knife, and I stabbed my finger, which you can't see, but it hurts still. Alright, so now I've got my center of the front, the back, and the bottom. So now all I have to do is clip it on. Now, currently, this doesn't really have a front and a back. I mean, it could if you really wanted to, but I don't think it does. So I'm going to take my center line and match it up with my other center line there. Clip it down. Actually, I'm going to clip it down with the clips facing the gussety piece. So I'm just going to go on the straight bit all the way across, and then I'm going to switch to the top. So up here, and then I'm going to clip these together. Now again, just push the foam out of the way. But the reason we base it is because now I don't have to fight it while putting the bag together, because it's already on there. I also made my back pocket a little bit shorter, so I just used the back piece of the bag as my pocket because I forgot to cut out and laminate the other piece. Alright, so now I'm at the corner. I'm just going to pull it and then use my thumbs to push that in to make the 3D bend, basically. Then, while I'm holding it there, just jam some clips in. Like so. Then we're going to come to the other side and do exactly the same thing. Lots and lots of clips. Now normally I wouldn't clip the lining, especially not this much, but the bag foam that I've put for the lens holders tells me that I need to. So again, we get to here and we just hold it. So I'm pushing my thumbs in so that it looks like a curve. Because you'll find that you'll be able to clip it much easier if you do it that way. Cool. So there we go. It won't stand up because it's lining. Oh no, there we go. Will stand up. So now I'm just going to stitch around that with a 2.5 stitch length. Stop and put my clips away so that they're not in my way. Excellent. So that should be now completely sewed up. So now we're going to attach our other side. Now I'm going to put a clip in the center just so it holds it. There. And then I'm just going to come straight to the top edge and start clipping down towards the curve. Because I'm going to leave part of the bottom of this open. Only the straight part and not all of the straight part. But the bigger you leave the hole, the easier the bag is to turn. The downside to that is then you still have to stitch it up. So I'm still going to do that thing where I hold it like a 3D object because I don't want to put too much or not enough of the fabric in that seam. And then I'm also going to check this side seam and see which way I've stitched it down and copy it on the other side so it's not twisting in the bottom of the bag. So I'm going to come and do the other side. It probably wouldn't make a huge difference if your seam was twisted, but at some point it will have to have that fold, whereas now it won't, it will sit flatter. Should be nice. Clipping down. So then I'm getting to nearly that corner again, so I'm going to ease the fabric into the curve and then clip that down. Oh, wrong way. Move that clip to the side now. Alright, so now we just want to sew here, leave a gap, and then sew up there. So the reason that we're leaving the gap not on the curve is because I promise it's so much harder to do up. So I got to the straight bit and back stitch. I come over to this side, move the first clip, stitch, and then turn and go up. And that was way too much back stitching, but that's okay. You only need like 3-ish bits. Alright, so this is where we will turn our bag through, but that is the lining done. Now we are on to the outside. So these are my D-ring connectors. If you wanted to, you don't actually have to have them removable. So if you've got, because I'm doing a 2-inch strap, I would need 2-inch square rings. If I had those, I could actually skip this because the strap doesn't need to be adjustable on a camera, removable on a camera bag. It does need to be adjustable. Unless you're making it for yourself and then you measure exactly what you need. Alright, double-sided tape. More double-sided tape. Oh, I'm in 100% me-made outfit today. So I've made my pants, my little, I don't know what these are called, and my shirt. I love these things. They keep you warm while still giving you full arm range because they have no arms. I kept getting ads for one of these and they were like, I don't know, $300 and something. They were probably worth it. They were like handmade and natural and all this other stuff. But I made this one for like $8. It's so comfortable. Okay, so I'm going to do that same thing because I want to keep with the theme of the center stitching. 3 3/4 stitch length. This will also hold it together, and I just knocked that piece on the floor. I'm going to chain stitch so I get left with less tails, because tails annoy me. And then I'm going to grab my 2 D-rings. So I'm going to feed them on with the wrong side touching the flat bit. Then, so you can do these a couple of ways. I am just going to have them flat like that. But you can also overlap them and have them like a 3-way sandwich. That will be too thick for my machine to do all of that and sew it through this with bag foam. So I'm going to do it that way. Because these sides are vinyl, you could also cut the hole and feed it through. I've done that in a couple of other videos. You could also have a piece that comes all the way up from the bottom as like an accent color. That would be fun too. You are limited only by your imagination with these bags. I think that's why I like making them. Alright, where is my ruler? Okay, I'm gonna have to pause it and find my ruler. Okay, I found it. It was on the floor in front of the camera, funnily enough. Alright, so I am going to measure, well, I don't know what the pattern says, so this is just my measurements, which is why I'm telling you them. 1.5 inches down from the top, and then I'm going to find the center. And this is a friction pen, which you can get from Woolworths, Coles, Officeworks, all of that. And I'm just drawing a 1-inch line in the center, because that's where I'm going to line this up with. So 1.5 inches down. And then in the center like that. Perfect. So now if you want to, and I'll show you because that's my thing, obviously I'm doing videos and tutorials. You can stick a piece of double-sided tape in the center of this because it's going to help it not move while you're trying to stitch it. Like that. It should also help, obviously it's not going to help 100%, but it does help hold it together so I can function with just one clip, which makes it much easier to sew. So to make this stick, I just heat the glue up with my finger by rubbing it back and forth a little bit, and then the back comes off a lot, that is not my rubbish bin, a lot easier. So then, now that it's got the double-sided tape, I can line it up along that line, like that. That is now stuck, so I can pick it up and move it around without me botching it, basically. Alright, so 3 3/4 stitch length. If you're doing this out of fabric, you can do a smaller stitch length, but I don't want to over perforate the vinyl because then it'll lose its strength. needle down, pivot. One more to there. Move my bowl so I don't knock them all. One more down and pivot. Stitch up to the edge, and then I did 3 back stitches and then chopped it off. Chop off the tails. Beautiful. Peel the backing off the other one. Do the same thing. I always start at the top so that I can go along, like the edge of my foot goes along the edge of the metal so I don't overstitch up. That's why I start at the top. Backstitch 3 and then pull it out. Trim off my tails. And voila! So now we need our bottom piece. Now because the vinyl's slippery, I am just going to chuck a couple of clips in. Nothing too dramatic, just 2. It's just enough to hold it without slipping. And then, oops, make sure you leave enough tail so your machine doesn't unthread. You think by now I would have learnt? Apparently not. Apparently you're meant to hold them as you stitch. So you're meant to grab them both and then stitch. I never remember to do that, ever. Alright, back stitch. Trim them. And then we're going to join the other side as well. So line that up. Grab 2 clips, or as many as you need. If you need more, do more. Oh, grab these. Oh look, I remembered. Back stitch. Now while I'm here, I'm going to just switch it up to 3 3/4. Open this up, flatten that seam out, and top stitch 1/8 of an inch each side of that seam. This is both decorative and functional. This is going to help squish the foam down at the seam so it's not super bulky looking, and it's also going to give like a nice accent stitch. Which is why I very rarely use the same colored thread. I'll use like green and green, but it's never the same shade of green. Because I like to have that accent look. Good. Turn. I'm not chopping it off, I'm just turning and going back the other way. So that has now made that much flatter without me having to trim anything off. And you get this nice kind of decorative stitching. Excellent. Move that aside. So we're going to grab our front panel. So the front panel is the big one and the back panel is the little one so that we can stick the lid in. So we'll do the front panel first, then the back panel. I haven't forgotten about these. I do them last and rivet them on. That's why we're not there yet. Just bear with me on that one. Yeah. So my thread got caught up in here. So I'm just going to take that off now so it's easy. And then get my lighter and just singe the ends. Little tip for you, use the blue part of the flame, not the red part, and you won't get like a singeing browning color. If you use the red part of the flame, it goes yucky. But the blue part just melts without overly burning, which is nice. All right, where is my ruler and my measuring pen, I guess? So I'm going to do 4 inches from the edge. So how I've done that is I've lined it up with this bit and this bit at the widest point of this because it kind of curves up at the edge. And that is where I'm just going to put a little mark like so. Do the same on this side. So line it up so it's straight along there and then touch the widest point of the side and do another line. And then that is where these sit. So I am just going to tack them in place and then that way mine can move. But if you didn't do that, you can also line it up and then stitch the box so that they're physically stuck to the bag. That is entirely up to you which way you want to do that. You know, I can't even remember what I did for the first one. All right, so on the inside and then the inside. So instead of chopping this off, I'm just going to stitch along there because it's ultimately quicker than me having to tie it off, cut it, have more tails. And that's all within my seam allowance, so now they're basted on there. And that's your front panel done. That's it. Easiest front panel ever. Alright, so I'm going to fold this in half. Get my snipping scissors, I guess. So these scissors are $4 from Bunnings in the cutting scissors aisle bit. They are designed for trimming off like twigs and taking cuttings from trees. They are very, very sharp and very, very cheap. I have had them for, well, at least 6 months because I bought them in Townsville. And they're still going strong, so highly recommend these $4 pair of scissors. Because I just find embroidery scissors, as soon as they put the word embroidery on scissors, they become much more expensive. So I use these to cut out my key fobs, which I did a video of. So the cigarette lighter one, I use these scissors to cut them out. Because they're very sharp and they can get in to tight places. Okay, so this yet doesn't have a front and back. Or if you did a print, then it will. So join your front to your front. And again, I'm going to make the clips face the gusset piece because that's the easiest way to do it. So I'm going to do 4 along there, apparently. Usually I do 3. Today I'm doing 4. Then I'm going to come up to the top and I'm going to line up the top. Whoops, that clip's on the wrong way. It ultimately doesn't super matter if you put them on the wrong way. It just helps when you're speed sewing, you can pull them off easier. That's all. Alright, so I'm up to the corner. So again, I'm going to stick my thumbs along that edge and push it down and in so it smoothly fits in the curve. And then add more clips. Now you're going to get a little bit of puckering and on this side of your thumb. That is normal because you're trying to fit a straight into a curve. What you don't want to happen is for those puckers and creases to go past 1/2 inch, which is your seam allowance. So it doesn't matter if they're on this side of the clip, so long as they're not on this side. And then you won't see them. That's one side done. So again, I'm using a lot more clips than I did. And actually, I did use a fair amount on the lining because of the lens holders. But I'm doing a lot of clips on here because I'm trying to fight all the bag foam. And you'll notice that I did put foam on all the pieces of this bag, including the base. That's because the camera sits on the base and you want it to be as protected as possible. So again, I'm getting my thumbs and I'm pushing that to curve, then I'm gonna clip it. All right, that may seem like a lot of clips. I don't mind though. All right, so see why we don't do it this way? It's much harder to hold that way. If you put it flat, then you just have to move that one corner and you just squish it down on an angle. And that's pretty much how I sew them. Back to a 2.5 stitch length. Now, when I get to here, I don't know if you just saw that, probably not. This tried to fold up out of the way, but I want to sew it down so it's flat. So I just push it back. I'm also checking to make sure I don't run out of bobbin thread. Because this was a new bobbin, but you still just never know. I took that clip off a little bit too soon, so my hand going in was just pulling it back out. Move your clips back into the jar, and then I'm going to check from the inside to make sure that there's no puckers in the corner. So you don't want, I don't know if you can see that, but that is lovely. There are no puckers. There's a little bit of a, that's the way I'm holding it. So if I do it like that, there's no puckers along that seam, which means it's a lovely seam. So we can leave it now. I am, however, going to get my scissors wherever I put them and just trim off some of this seam allowance. I want to get rid of both the stuff up the top here, so I want to make this a lot shorter here, and I want to take it off the curves so that the bag is going to sit flatter. Now normally I would use my silver Class A scissors, but I left them on my cutting table behind you guys, behind the camera, and I can't reach them. So I'm just going to use these ones, which are still good. So these scissors are the Fiskars spring-loaded scissors from Spotlight. So they've got a spring, so they always open. So if you've got sore hands or you find it really hard to cut, buy these scissors, they're amazing. They do take a day or two to get used to because you're not putting your hands in them like traditional scissors, but worth it. So now also what I'm going to do is where these connectors are, I'm just going to come back over and do a little bit of extra stitching to give them extra stability because we don't want it to come out. That would suck. So I'm just back stitching forward and back over that whole area just to lock them in. Then I'm going to do the same on the other one, all the way forward and all the way back. And I'm kind of doing like a very close zigzag like this. So I'm moving down it, but just a very little bit. And that's just going to make sure that I can't pull that out for whatever reason. Not that that's going to have a lot of pressure, but I can now really rip on that and it'll stay. Okay, back piece. Here we go. So you need your lid. You need your base and then the top bit. So the reason this comes like this is we're just going to wedge the lid in between them. Easy peasy, right? Now something that might be beneficial, so I'm going to do it, especially if you guys are new to bag making, I'm going to baste the lining to the very edge so that it won't move on me later. So I'm just going to hold it up because it is a 3D item. And I'm just stitching right along that edge. And so now the lining can't escape. I know it looks a little bit saggy, I'm gonna fix that. Just gotta wait. We're not up to that bit yet. Okay, so I'm gonna fold this in half, find the center, because the center of everything is much, much easier. Like that. And then I'm gonna find the center of this one. So this is our top part of the back of the bag. And then I'm going to find the center of the bottom part of the back of the bag. Like that. And now it's just a matter of lining them all up. So, easiest way to think of this. Here's your back. You want your lid to come over like that. Right? So you want it sitting in like that. So you're going to put it like this. In the center. And then this piece goes this way so that it hides that center line. See? And then the bag will come up and over. So if people ever wondered, it's always just good to like go through the motions of have I got it the right way? That's the best way to do it. So you want your bag to go up and over with the lid, and then that bit's going to hide everything. Now normally I would pin or clip 2 bits at a time. Today I'm going to do 3 because they are all very firm, are less likely to move on me, and also aren't very long. So what I am going to do though is I'm going to make sure that, remember how we veered off here? I need to make sure that that raw edge is definitely in all of my seam allowance. And another thing, the lid is shorter than this piece, so that it's meant to be like that. So make sure that yours is. If it's not, just go to the lid and take a little bit more off here. So just taper in more. But yeah, the lid is meant to be smaller than the back piece. This is actually a birthday present for one of my family members. See? Beautiful. And you can let go, it all kind of sits the way you want it to because it's all been squished down. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to stitch and then I'm going to back stitch. And then I'm just going to go slow and steady. There are lots of layers here. And if you made your whole lid vinyl, then it would be even thicker. So slow and steady wins the race on this particular part. See? And then the lid comes up and over like that. I'm going to trim some of this seam allowance down because I don't want this much chunky foam right there. It's going to skew the bag lid. So I'm just going to trim it down to probably about 1/4. This is very, very thick. That's the only downfall of these scissors. They don't like super thick stuff as much as my Class A ones, which is why my Class A ones I use for cutting vinyl and thick layers usually. One day I'll remember to bring everything to the video. Alright, so now, if you move this out of the way, you can see that it's now just a normal back piece. So now we're just going to install it like a normal back piece. We're going to find the center of the bottom. So again, fold the bag in half. Get my center finding scissors. And then pin from the bottom out with the clips facing the gusset piece again. Center, out. I'm going to do 3 out each side. 3, and then I'm going to come up to the top. And so we're pushing the lid out of the way, so we don't care about that bit at the moment. And we're just going to clip down. Now I'm going to put a lot more, like the clips are going to be a lot closer, so there's going to be a lot more clips in this, because I'm now not only fighting the bag foam, but also fighting a lid that doesn't want to sit like that. Always a fun one. All right. Pinning closer and closer to that curve. Then I'm going to tack on and I'll put one more clip. There we go. And then just ease it in. So take your thumb and push it into the curve. I always find it easier with my thumb. I don't know why. I also find it easier to pin in my lap. I think because it's closer to me. It can't fight me as much. So I'm going to line up that top. And then clip downwards. Making sure that the seams are all lined up as we go. Alright, so then we're up to the corner again, so I'm just going to ease that in, clip it down. Ta-da! Alright, again, squish this down and kind of push it on an angle away from you so it's out of the way. The angle will also make sure that it's out of the way when we turn the curve at the bottom. Did I just run out of bobbin thread? Yes, I did. I heard it go. The more you sew, the more you'll be in tune with your machine, and you hear when it stitches, even just a little bit differently. So my embroidery machine, I can be standing on the other side of the room, and when it drops a stitch, I can hear it. Or maybe I just have really good hearing. I don't know. Now, another tip, when doing your bobbins, especially on an industrial machine, always go full speed, because what it does is it's pushing the oil up through your machine, keeping it lubed. That only half filled and turned itself off. That was odd. Alright, so see how it's not full? See how there's still plenty of room between the thread and the top? Never fully fill them. I know they're designed to be fully filled, but I promise you'll have much less drama if you don't. Domestic ones, on the other hand, fill away. I've never had an issue with the domestics being full. Just the industrial. Alright, where was I up to? Not very far down the side. So I'm just going to go back about an inch and stitch over those same spots again. I'm using the weight of my arm, like in my elbow, to kind of push this down out of the way. Alright, too many clips. Stitching at the end. Probably didn't need to do it twice, but I did. Made me feel better. And then again, we're going to clip down some of this excess. Oh, that was close. So especially if you're a domestic user, make sure that you taper off that top, because you'll have less, because we still need to top stitch the bag once we attach the lining. So you'll have a lot less bulk and your machine will manage much better. Oh, that reminds me, I promised you guys a domestic machine bag tutorial thing. Okay. Outside's done. I'm going to take our inside and turn it inside out. Like so. And then I can see all these threads that I clearly missed. Always trim your tails. You're less likely to accidentally sew them through a seam. Okay, so now I'm going to put my insides in the bag. So I want my pocket piece, which is this piece, along the same side that so on the back wall. So where the pocket is, not the pocket, where the lid's attached, that's where you're putting that back piece. So it goes in like that, and then just shove it in. Now I always start with my corners because I want all the seams to line up as best they can in the corners of the bag, because that's something people look at if they're a sewer. It's the first thing they go and look at. Did you line everything up? How do I know? Because I have been guilty of doing it when I go looking at bags in shops. I go to like bag shops and just have a look and see what shapes are around, what colors are in fashion. It's kind of fun. It's like research. I never buy one. I don't buy store-bought bags anymore. Haven't in a long time. Although I would be tempted if I've once found a bag that I was in love with so I could pull it apart and make a pattern. That's definitely something I would do. Alright, so I always clip my short ends first. I don't know why. It's just my process. It's my process. Throw the clips on the table. A little bit of chaos is always fun. And then I'm going to be stitching this with the lining side up, so I'm going to attach the clips that way. If you were to turn the whole thing inside out, you could do it the other way. But it'll be easier to have the lining up with the way the bag has been done. Alright, twist around and then come and do the back wall. Now, if you've done even seam allowances, so even if you didn't do full 1/2 inch everywhere, if you've done even seam allowances, this should just clip on beautifully. You could do 1/4 inch seam allowances for the whole bag and it will still work out for you, so long as you're consistent. Consistency is key. Oh, clips the wrong way. Right. Probably did not need that many clips, but I did it anyway. Alright. So, I'm just basically going to slot the bag on and off I go. Now, if I was on my cylinder machine where I could lift it up, I would stitch with this side up and stitch the bag under. So if you're on a domestic machine, you could raise it up under like a few phone books and then take it off for like that cuff thing and then slot the bag under and stitch it with the outside up. But this machine doesn't allow that, so we're not doing it that way. So I'm just going to take off one clip so I can get my foot in. So once your foot's in, that's half the battle. So I'm going to stitch and back stitch. And then, so I'm just pushing this out of the way and stitching along the edge. And I'm rotating the bag around as I go. You're going to find it easier if you can make it as flat as possible for as long as possible. My starting tails are now getting in the way, so I'm going to, oops, chop them off. Do you know I only seem to drop stuff when I'm recording? This never happens otherwise. This magical power I have where I'm on camera and I'm clumsy. Oh well. usually stitch over 2 or 3 stitches and then backstitch. So then you want to come and you want to make sure that you got everywhere and that you haven't missed anything. And then, these are my zipper scissors. I'm just going to cut out the corners. Because again, we don't want bulk when top stitching. It will wreck our beautiful top stitch, and that is not ideal. So I'm just chopping kind of little V's or little U's out. There's also a bit here where my machine jumped. So I'm just gonna, I don't like that bit, so I'm just gonna fix it. Sorry, I'll show you. See, here. My machine was stitching along and then just jumped up one. That means that I pulled it while I was stitching. So now I've just veered it so that it all joins back in again. That's my own fault. I would have pulled it slightly or knocked it when the needle was up. These things happen and they're easily fixed. All right, into our hole we go. The first thing I'm going to grab is the lid and pull the lid slightly out so that now it's up out of the way and I can stick my hand back in and grab a corner. So any corner will do. I'm going to go with this one. And then I'm just going to pull that also out of the bag. So this will be a little bit tricky to turn because of how much foam is in it. It's got more than the average bag, but that's why I left pretty much the whole base section open so that I could pull it out easier. So what I do is I grab it and then I roll my wrist, I grab it like this and then roll out. I found that's the best way to turn a bag so far. Then I'm using my thumbs to just push everything else in. And then it all just kind of pops out. So before I go straight in this bag, I'm just going to tug slightly on the lining to make sure that there's no holes, because now's a good time to turn it back in if I have to. But I'm fine. So now I can stick my hand back in the bag and push out the edgy bits. Now I promise I haven't forgotten about the closure there. I'm getting to it. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is close the bottom of the bag. So how I do this is I stick my fingers in and pull tight, or taut. Tight? Taut. Probably both. And then I'm just going to clip along here. Like this. I actually really like how this bag comes out. Looks good. Lots of clips. You could also use pins for this if you wanted to. And so then I'm just going to top stitch along there. If you wanted to, you could also hand stitch this. I hate hand stitching, so if I don't have to, I tend to not do it. I don't know why I have a hatred for hand stitching. It's just not my thing. It's not that I can't do it. I think it's just it's time consuming. Alright, so the bottom of the bag is now closed. So I've only got a couple of bits left. Push that down onto the inside of your bag. Pull them out of the way. So, looking great. Needs a bit of firming up, but that's okay. Then I'm going to roll down this top edge and clip it. Because I'm going to top stitch the bag so that it sits nicely. And then I'm going to iron it from the inside out so that the lining will stick to the other side of the double-sided bag foam. So the foam I use has glue on both sides. So I will be able to stick this lining down flush along the whole bag, which will look lovely. And it will help prevent any kind of sagging. Which is why my sewing room goes through so much baking paper. So I'm just making sure that the seam is top and center and then just clipping it. Now because I've taken all of that bulk out of those side seams, that's actually thin enough that I won't need my fancy squishy pliers. Oops, missed. I know I've done a lot of clips, but it's helping to hold it down while I get to it all. Okie dokie. Now I'm fairly confident that I'll be able to stay on the edge of this pretty well. So I'm going to do a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I'm going to stitch from the top, even though the bag is right sides out. So an easier way to do this is turn your bag inside out. I'm being stubborn. But I am going to start on the back so that my join will be in like a back corner so that it won't be noticeable at the front of the bag. So you just squish the bag down and then scooch it up and under. Why are you not scooching? There we go. So I'm not going to backstitch at the start, which I know is contrary to what I always tell you guys. I'm just going to keep bringing that bag around, squishing it down and out. Needle down, swing it around. Probably if you're a beginner, turn the bag inside out to do this. If you're an advanced beginner to intermediate, you'll be fine. Alright, so then we want to go over probably 5 or 6 stitches and then backstitch. And that way we've only got one bulky backstitch bit, not 2. And from the outside, you can't even see it. Look at that, you can't even see where I backstitched. It's beautiful. Alright, stick my hands in, flatten everything out. So again, I will go and iron all of this so it goes in. But your bag's nearly done. Look at that. Now we just need the clippy bits, which are these bad boys. And a strap, because always a strap. So again, this just needs some squishing and maneuvering to be fabulous, but it'll be fine. So I'm going to grab some double-sided tape and stick it down the center to there. I'm going to do like a T. I'm going to pick that off because I did a little bit too long. And then just do a T across like that. And that will be enough to hold it in place while you top stitch it together. And then you just grab one. Now I start from the point and work my way back. So I'm going to line up there, like so. One done. I always do one part and then the other, and I just had a thought about this. So if I do the cross part first, then I can get the T to go over it, which means I'll get more of a hold at the point, like so. Line it up, Bob's your uncle. So what's going to happen is these are going to stick to here, and this part here is going to hold your clip. You can't see any of that. So I'm going to start at the flat bit, but I'm not going to do the short edge. I don't need to do the short edge. So I'm going to slow down when I get to this curve because it's very curvy. Needle down in the point, and then we're going to turn around and go back again. Now another fun thing you can do with this bag is change up this shape. So if you're doing like a sea-themed one, you could have these looking like shells or a crab or, you know, a lobster. Literally do a lobster claw. That's something I would do for sure. You could do these as love hearts. That would be fun too. Depending on, you know, what your fabric is, I guess. Okay, now mine's a little bit bigger on one side than the other, so I'm just going to trim down that excess because I don't need it there. A little bit off this side. Done. So now we want to take the other half of our clips. And so the idea is that these will go here and this will go like this. So you can even just clip it back in. So I want to feed it in and down behind it, like so. And then this is going to work out what length I want to make these parts. So these are basically fully adjustable. So again, I'm going to clip it in. I'm going to go in the top, maybe. And then down and through. And this way these can be firm without flopping around too much, or you can make them looser if you know you're going to overfill the bag, see? So that's how they're going to go. So I'm pretty happy with them being the size that I've just done. So I'm going to unclip them, and now I can stitch them shut. So I'm going to do it probably from that way. I'm just holding the clip out of the way so I don't accidentally knock it or stitch it or something dramatic. And then my little bit of excess I got, I'm just also going to trim off because I don't need it there. Ta-da! So again, I'm doing this very slowly because I have my fingers very, very close to the needle, which I don't particularly love the idea of, but I do have to hold it out of the way so I don't break the clip. Trim off all my tails. Now that I think about it, I probably could have riveted that on. Would have saved me all of that drama. Okay, so clip these in. Bring them up to where you need them to sit. So put your lid on properly so that everything's nice and even, like that. Lift these up, and I'm going to use some Wonder Clips to clip it in place, like that. Sorry, I have to do this facing me, because otherwise I can't tell what I'm doing. But I will turn around and show you in a second. So I'm just basically eyeballing it, right? So that they're even. In fact, this one could go up a little bit higher. Just a smidgen. Too much. Right, like that. So then I can unclip it because I'm happy. And I'm going to grab my rivet, press my hole punch, and my, oh, get out of there, gunmetal grey rivets. So I'm going to start with one top and center. So I'm going to use my hand to smooth the lining. Actually, I'm going to do 4. So I'm going to do one in the center near the bottom, because that's going to help me hold it all in place. So I'm going to do 1 there. Then I'm going to do 1 out to each side. And then I'm going to do 1 at the top center. So it's going to be easier for me to just pop this in upside down. It's not a big deal. Right, 1 rivet. Now I can take those off, move it out of the way. Do a side rivet. This is also going to give a nice detail. You could also use Chicago screws. You could also stitch this on if you wanted to. Where I'm putting the rivets won't damage your camera because it's part of the lid that touches here. So there's no way for these to like damage your camera, which is why I'm happy to do them now and not on the lining only. So there and up there. Put both my holes in now. So I can put both my rivets in. 1 and 2. Then I'm going to stick both the caps on, and then I can squish them at the both at the same time. Right, one after the other, but I don't have to readjust the bag again. You can't see, the bag's in the way. So I'm just going to set those 2 rivets. 4 is possibly overkill, but it looks pretty, which is why I ended up doing the 4. I mean, whatever makes you happy. It's your bag design. This is not how the pattern's written at all, so you can ignore me if you'd like. Alright, 1, 2, 3, get up to that top one, 4. One, 2, 3, and 4. Flip it open. Grab 4 of the caps. You can hear that, I don't know if you heard that, but it clicked. So that now that I know that they've clicked, they're not going to fall off while I press the other ones. So I can take the clips off. They're no longer in use, really. 1, 2, whoops, 3, and 4. Bring that down, clip that in. That is your bag portion done. Now we just need to make our strap. So I need to go and find where I've put the strap, and I will be right back. Okay, so I found it. It was way over there. I also have ironed this piece in half. So this is now down to 1.5 inches. So I cut a 3-meter piece and the width of the fabric, because this is a 150 wide fabric. And then I've got a 4-inch by width of fabric piece of the vinyl. This is also felt backed, which is good and bad. So the perks of felt back is it's easier to stick it down. The bad or downside to the felt back is it's so thick I couldn't make an all vinyl strap if I wanted to, because it won't go through the strap connectors. So it's got its ups and downs. I've also chopped off the ends just because it had perforated holes. And because it's black, I'm using my Choco pen or Chaco pen to mark everything out. I do have some of those on sale, like for sale on the website, because they are probably in my top 5 favorite or most used items in my sewing room. Which leads me to think that maybe I should do a video of all the cool things I use in my sewing room. Alright, so I've got a line down the center, I've got my double-sided tape down the center. Now I'm going to peel the backing off said double-sided tape. Oops. I just tore it because I got too excited. That's fine. If it ever tears, just rip it from the other way. Works a treat. Okay. So now I'm just going to make sure that that doesn't fold on itself, and I'm going to start over here and fold both sides into the center. I've been practicing on doing them both sides at the same time. It's clearly an art form that I haven't mastered, but I am getting better, so I feel like that counts. So I'm just bringing both sides over and then just smoothing it down with my hands. Doesn't matter if they're not 100% like in the center, so long as they're all touching, because it means that they are 100% the right size. That's what matters more. So if you're like a mil or two off the very, very center, that's fine. We're more interested in having no raw edge here. If you do raw edges, you could just use some edge paint. But mine are still coming in the mail, apparently extremely slowly. Alright, so I'm nearly to the end. Now I may have to cut my vinyl down a little bit, I'm not sure. Or I may have to fold under this. I've just done width of fabric, and then whichever one's longer I will make shorter, is pretty much where I'm at with that. Oh, piece of the 3D printer plasticky stuff. Been giving me some grief recently. I had to get the 17-year-old to come back and like pull half of it apart because it got clogged, to which we fixed, but then it started oozing the plastic out of the top of the nozzle, like the side top bit. I don't know, it was a disaster, but it's going okay now, so yay. This is the last of the silver bowls, and then I will be on to gold. And while I'm doing the gold bowls, I might also print a couple of the Lord of the Rings ones to add to the release. Alright, light on, 3 3/4 stitch length. So I'm going to stitch forward and back. One more. So I'm just stitching 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the fabric. So I've deliberately made this fabric smaller because I want to be able to see the vinyl from the top. This is just an accent strip. But I think it looks cool, so we're doing it. So I'm going to put both of those untwisted down on the floor, basically, so that it will sit nicer while I try and stitch it together. Now, if you don't want to do it this way, you can actually put a piece of tape, like another piece of double-sided tape, and stick the fabric down. I'm quite happy just moving along at my own speed, really. Alright, so because I had to cut off the edges because they were perforated, my fabric is too long. So I'm just going to cut it about 1/2 inch past the edge of the vinyl, and then I'm going to tuck that raw edge under so that I won't see it. Down, pivot, needle down, pivot again. So then I'm going to take the whole strap and do the same thing. I want it untwisted, and then I can just stitch along the edge. Now I'm not going too fast because last time I speed stitched, I ended up having to unpick it all because it left loops in the bottom. Apparently it was too fast, which was disappointing, but whatever. And then back stitch. Now I'm going to check that because that should be lovely on the back. Ah, yes. Beautiful. And then you've got this fun accent on the top. I'm really hoping she likes brown. I actually think she requested not brown, but or maybe it was the other one. I don't know. I think that dark brown looks really good with that fabric. Alright, stitch, back stitch, and off we go. So I'm just going to put the strap adjuster on first. I find it easy to do this one first than the other one. Lots of people do it the other way and do this last. My issue is you're fighting all that other stuff that's in the way. Alright, slide one of these on. So you want the back to be on the flat edge, like so. Make sure there's no twists. Feed it up one side. Don't be like that. Come now. Up one side and then down the other. And then get this and put the flat side on the back again. Fold it over, and then I'm just going to stitch that down as well. I want to move it. I'm sliding it down because I want to be close to the edge. I don't need a lot of loop there. And I'm just doing I'm stitching forward a little bit and then back stitching and then stitching forward. And that's just going to help lock it in without me having to try and back stitch the whole way. All right. Trim off your tails and then we're done. Voila! One bag, guys. I hope that was informative somewhat, and I do hope you try this as a challenge to yourself, especially if you own a camera. Definitely try it. I think it's worth it. That was fun. But stay tuned, and I will do some more videos hopefully tomorrow. Bye, guys!